Right.
So this is our 44th episode, and I'm
44th. Wow.
And I'm still trying to help him out every now and again.
So we started like our podcast. We were on a trip. Was it to the Wickham Lake concert?
Yeah.
And then on the way back, he's like, "Hey Tim, do you want to start a podcast?" I'm like, "Okay," but this kind of stuff is more his forte. So I'm a learning curve, and I've always say that I don't learn very quickly, but I'm the kind of guy that doesn't get it, but I perfect it all of of a sudden.
Okay.
So one day, in the not too distant future, I'll be okay.
You have the exact same expression that I have. I'm like,
get your earballs ready. Welcome to the Greg and Tim Show podcast. Take time to sit back and relax and enjoy the show. Here are your hosts, Greg and Tim.
Well, welcome to the Greg and Tim Show.
Welcome to the show.
That is the show where Greg talks about conspiracy theories and Tim makes
theories.
Yeah.
Mandela effect is not a conspiracy theory.
Yeah, it is. And Tim, what do? I make guests cry.
Uncomfortable.
Yeah. And we talk in third person.
In the safe, confined space, as we figured out last episode.
Was it safe? No, it was safe, vulnerable place.
Confined. He said he had a
safe, vulnerable, confined.
So our last guest was 6'8", and as you can see, the ceilings aren't very high here. So he felt safe, vulnerable, but also confined at the same time.
Yeah. Isn't safe and vulnerable, isn't that just together? If you feel safe, that usually means you can be vulnerable, no?
Well, I said,
or is he saying vulnerable in a non-safe way?
Tim said it was safe, so
I don't know.
Assumed it was different.
Anyway, the person talking to you is Zach Fontaine. He is the senior pastor of Springs Church. He's the president of Springs Christian Academy. More recently,
CEO or president?
President.
Yeah, I was right.
Okay.
And more recently, he started a second career as a residential house painter. I don't know if anybody knew that.
Yeah.
So you didn't know about Zach right out of the gate.
Something you didn't know about Zach. And he's our good friend. So
well, you just used my answer for any questions coming up. So.
We're trying to. Something you didn't know about you. We're just trying to
I
eliminate
hate painting. Yeah.
Welcome to the podcast.
But when I do it for a while, I suck at it, but then I all of a sudden just perfect it. So I'm waiting for that day with painting, but it'll come. It'll come.
Yeah. Well,
sounds like
on that note, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
Have you watched any of our shows yet?
I've watched, I'd say clips. I haven't watched the whole show.
Yeah.
I don't know.
A lot of people just watch the clips. It's easier, bite-sized.
It's Instagram. I don't know.
Yeah, Instagram, shorts, all that kind of stuff. It's easier to take Tim as a 30-second bite-sized portion than a full hour and a half bite-sized portion. A big meal.
So what's your Canada Day plans this weekend?
Oh, man. I am a very what?
I was going to say this.
No, we're taping. I know that it's going to air, but when we're taping this weekend, it's Canada Day.
Okay,
he can say what his Canada Day plans.
So, what were your Canada Day plans?
And let us know how it went.
Oh man, I don't have many plans usually for these types of weekends. I'm just like super chill. Yeah, it's been like ridiculously busy in every area of my life, so it's been really nice to just. I mean, I'm an extrovert. My wife's an introvert. So for Canada Day, it's like when we can say a weekend at home or like around home, that's like the best plan I could have.
Yeah.
It could be a little boring, but my life's not boring. So my home life has to be a little bit slow paced, you know? So for Canada Day, probably not much, especially if the weather's
supposed to rain.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So it'll most likely be finishing painting at my house.
Still, eh?
Oh,
and you're painting the kitchen?
Everything's being painted now, but
you got the bug.
Well, yeah.
Or you were told.
I still don't really understand what painting a kitchen helps with the incoming of a baby. But hey, as long as our new baby loves our cabinets, then it's great.
Hey, speaking of, and you guys are expecting, but what is the best and worst pieces of advice you've been given about becoming a father?
Oh man,
you don't have to name names of who gave them to you, Tim Sanderson.
Yeah.
But,
no, I haven't gotten anything super bad to be able to say. There's not like some crazy thing. I would say that I think anyone who's an expecting parent knows that every bit of information they get is super one side on this side and another one's super on this side, and they all contradict each other, and they all are. I think every parent disagrees with every other parent in how they do their things. So the hardest thing about it being an expectant father or mother, I'm sure, is the fact that you just have to. Well, for me, it was actually calming because I'm like, if everyone gives me complete opposites of what they do, then we're fine.
Then
that means that we can be parents and we can figure this out, no problem. So that was a big thing for me. But so I haven't had anything anything crazy. It's the small things, right? We're in that place where we have to buy and outfit a baby room, and so it's more of those types of things. Well, do you need a change table? No. Some people say yes. Some people say this. Just grab this. Just do it on here. And I'm like, you know what? I don't even know. So
get a change table. It'll save your back 100%.
Yeah. And then I heard, don't get a change table. Just get a nice dresser and put something on top of the dresser. So
a baby.
Sorry, that's what we did as well. We got a dresser, but you got to make sure the height's right.
Totally.
Right? Because it's a lot of work. And get one of those mats that's curved, and
I think it depends on
diaper genie.
I've heard those things are good. Yeah. So, yeah.
Speaking of height, we had this argument. How tall are you?
6'2".
Oh,
you were right on the bat.
Yeah.
No, you said he was less than 6'2".
Yeah.
How tall are you?
I guess 6'3".
Oh, so you're an inch taller.
Yeah, it's nothing to do with this conversation. We just had this discussion.
No.
I just thought of it when
you guys are in the nesting mode right now. Then you're painting, you're getting the house ready, you're nesting essentially.
Well, it's just getting that. I don't know. It's like, you guys all know this, that your house usually takes second seat to everything, back seat to everything, right? Yeah. So for me, it's like, well, we have to do this at some point. So, but then when you do one thing, you do another thing, and then when you do another thing, you have another thing. And the way that our house works, it's built in the 70s, so it's like there's always something.
Yeah,
it's like you rip that wall out, and you're like, oh, sweet, that's how they wired it. That's fantastic. You know, this is gonna be great. Yeah. No, I can't just hang a chandelier. I have to rewire the entire wall. Great, that's awesome. You know,
you got stuff coming out of the walls, and
so I think we finally just were like, let's just get it to at least to the point where we can enjoy and.
Yeah. It'll get busy soon. When's the due date?
September 19th.
September 19th. Yeah, it's gonna get busy real soon.
Yeah, it's just gonna add to the busyness that we already have, which is great. I mean, Jess is like, my wife is a school teacher, so she's like breathing easy this morning because yesterday was officially the last day of school.
End of school, special time for all teachers.
Yep. Yeah. So I think I'm happy that she's just able to chill. Yeah. So, but then, July slows down too. I mean, July is a slower month for church, and for obviously there's nothing really going on in school, but typically when there's nothing going on, it's the best time to get a little busy with it because you can change and you can grow and you can that's when you can actually sit down and talk about strategy, talk about different things that you would normally not be able to pivot in the moment of when it's really busy, like school, right? It's like you can't have a big meeting with a bunch of people during school because there's so many different things that are already vying for their attention. So that's the beauty of it, but I plan to take some time off in August, which will be good.
Awesome. Yeah. And at the end of July, I'm assuming you'll take a little bit of time off to go and work at camp.
Yeah, that's not time off though. Yeah, I love being there. Don't get me wrong, but it's not time off.
Yeah, it's a little bit of work at the same time.
I enjoy being somewhere else and being at a campground and stuff, but it's still different, right? Like you just have that's my occupation now, though, right? So I love doing those types of things. But vacation, I'd say, is defined by something where, at least for me and Jess, I can walk freely with my wife and not get pulled anywhere, and we can just spend time, right?
You gotta let your hair down, and sometimes when you're around in your job mode, like you say, you can't do that.
Yeah, and most people complain about that. I don't complain about it. I love it. But yeah, it's so camp is fantastic. But I probably speak 2 or 3 times there that week, so that's in itself work. And then you have it's just great to walk around, and the community aspect of church is what that's why we do these things, and that's why I'm going, because I really enjoy the community aspect. So
2 episodes ago we talked to Avery about she stood in one of our guests, her name was Avery Martin. She stood in line for I think 4 hours for Krispy Kreme donuts. And she's like, "Oh, that's crazy." I'm like, "Oh, that's crazy." And then I thought to myself, no, it's crazy. I slept in a parking lot for 2 days. To sign up for camp.
I know.
And she's like, "What kind of camp are you guys going?"
There's a good chance we're not doing that next year, just so you know. But yeah.
Breaking news.
Breaking news.
We'll put that across the bottom.
Yeah. I'm just saying, because it's fun. That's the hard part about those things with church, where it's like it creates community, those things in itself.
Yeah.
But it's not the most efficient way to do things.
I've heard that it's changing. It's not 2 days, it's 3 days.
It's 3 days next week.
3 days.
Oh, that's the change. So if you want to pass that around. Greg, do you want to do the
The welcome.
Well,
Did
no,
you- did you
already
guys-
did. We already did the welcome.
Did
No,
we talk about what Zach does and everything yet? Did you
Yeah,
do that in the
I did.
intro?
I
Okay.
did, yeah, I did.
I'm sorry, I didn't. I wasn't listening.
So there is a controversy over rock paper scissors.
Right. Rock paper
Uh,
scissors.
There's no controversy, but
And
That's why we're going to get to the bottom.
it's on
of it
another
right
show
now.
that you have connections to, but it's the idea. Is it on 3 or is there some shoot? Explain this thing to me.
Okay, so rock paper scissors, as David and Jeremy on their show Citizen, we're talking about. There's 2 different versions. There's rock paper scissors,
Which
Which
you
is what
throw
it
on
is.
scissors,
which I adhere to.
or rock paper scissors go, which you throw on go.
Which is
we
four.
just need to know where you fall.
oh, scissors
Exactly.
over and over again. I commented on that video and said, "There's no such thing as shoot. What is that?" Every time I do this with my nephew, which happens to be Jeremy's son, he's always like, "Shoot." I'm like, "No, that's not
There's-
how this works.
Exactly.
It's
There is no-
3 and on the 3rd."
So since you guys are both on the same wavelength,
Yeah.
we're gonna do a little contest here.
And
We're gonna
there's
do rock paper scissors, best of 3.
Yeah.
Okay. If Tim wins,
and there's a wager on this.
Okay,
Not money.
I don't
not
gamble.
money, no money on this. You don't have to chug a Red Bull or anything like that,
Yeah.
like Tim had to last time.
It was my own challenge, but whatever.
It was your own challenge.
Yeah.
You made us all chug Red Bulls, which was
I-
insane.
I won.
Yes. What does Zach have to do if you win?
He has to shout one of us out from stage.
Negatively or positively?
Well, if it's Tim negatively.
No. It's up to you.
You know what he's gonna do? He's just gonna take a story from the Bible with the name Tim in it, and he's
Yeah.
gonna just talk about that story.
So in Timothy, no, just kidding. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, and then if Tim loses, what do you want him to do? I'm putting you on the spot here.
Oh man,
Or Tim, what would you do if you lost?
I was gonna say paint my cabinets, but
That's way to shout somebody out. Say
I
one
have
name.
I
And
have
it's to paint my cabinets.
I have only one more coat, so it's not even worth it to say you should paint my cabinets because it doesn't
Yeah.
really do anything, you know. So
How about we'll think about. He'll think about the.
We'll
wager
think about the
during
wager. Okay, so let's see who's gonna win this one. And you're gonna play it on the old school way, the wrong way. Rock, paper, scissors.
By the way, that vote went against your opinion.
I know.
so there's
55-45.
no fine print on how this shout out works.
No fine.
So
print.
once you win,
I need
because there's a good chance you're gonna win. I lose this whole time.
Just be first name. You can't just say Tim.
Yeah. Do
Because
you want me to throw the Sandman painting in there too?
I'm not requiring it. However, if you
how
wish
he
to
could
do
work
it that
in?
way,
He could work it in through like talking about his painting at his house.
Yeah.
And how he consulted a company.
I'm not gonna micromanage how he
Or
does.
he
this.
can just say he talked to his buddy Tim about painting. And he doesn't even have to say it's you.
No, apparently I have to say Sanderson.
Yeah.
So if I have to say Sanderson, how I put it in is easy. It's the if there's a fine print that's attached to this that you're going to tell me after you win. Oh, I didn't say this, but
There's no fine print.
okay.
No
Here's the
fine
thing:
print.
we're 0 for 2 on these challenges, so you're probably going to win anyway.
0 for 2.
So-
I had this exact same thing with my nephew Ellis,
Yeah.
and I was in Calgary. We were at a lake that was very cold, and I said, "Okay." I said, "Let's do rock paper scissors," which is shoot for him.
Yeah.
And I said, "Loser has to jump in the lake." And he, first of all, did his like rock paper scissors with his dad,
Yeah.
lost
Yeah.
or won with Jeremy. Jeremy had to go jump in the lake. So I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, let's go. He beats me. I have to go jump in the lake, and and then we did it again later. He beats me again. I'm like, okay, this is I can't play rock paper scissors apparently. So, anyways, but
Here
sure.
we go.
Sure.
Is it best of 3?
Best of 3. Yeah.
Okay.
Ready?
So it's just 3, right?
Yeah.
No shoot.
No shoot.
Okay.
Ready?
Rock,
1, 2,
paper,
3.
scissors.
1,
Rock,
2,
paper,
3.
scissors.
1,
Rock,
2,
paper,
3.
scissors.
1,
Rock,
2,
paper,
3.
scissors.
I won.
Well,
3?
Zach's winning 1 so far. 1-0 for Zach.
Oh, paper
Yeah.
1.
Yeah. Okay.
So is it best? Is it
Best of
You
3.
have to win 2.
So if I win one more, I win, and
Yeah.
if you win one,
It's
we're tied.
down to the wire now.
Yeah. Okay. Rock,
1, 2,
paper,
3.
scissors. Oh, I thought you were gonna go
One,
paper.
one. It's 1-1. everybody.
Okay, wait. Gotta thank you. Okay. Rock, paper, scissors.
Oh!
No shout out for you.
All of that.
We've lost.
Is that 0 for 3 now?
Yeah.
Oh
We've lost
man,
all of them.
that's funny.
So last episode, I did a coin toss with Doug Brown here, and the coin toss was to do with football because they do coin tosses and everything.
Was
But
it a double-headed?
I wish
coin?
we should have.
Yeah.
We really should have. We said that if he lost the coin toss, he
We were
would
looking
have
for
to.
one.
We were hoping that he would lose,
Yeah.
so that he would have to FaceTime Milt Stiegel during the show,
Oh, that's sweet.
and we
That'd been
lost.
pretty fun.
It would have been
And
fun.
and FaceTime saying hi Milt, calling him, saying hi Milt, sorry, I can't talk right now. I'm on the Greg and Tim show,
Yeah.
even though he's the one that called.
Yeah. That would be funny.
And vice versa, if Regos, he had to
I-
do that to somebody else,
I had to do it to
and
other
he
people.
totally forgot during the show. Doug Brown left. He's like, oh, he totally forgot to do it. He never actually did it. And then but he did it after the show.
I did it after the show still,
Okay.
and we recorded it.
And I did a terrible recording of it.
Yeah.
And he got mad at me for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't get mad at you.
Yeah, you
I get
mad.
angry.
It's the same thing. You show your
Synonym?
frustration
Mad
in a
and
loud
angry.
tone. In a loud and angry tone.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's get into what we really want to know about Zach here today, because we want to know a little bit about yourself as a person.
Okay.
We know Zach, the pastor who speaks in front of us on a almost weekly basis these days.
Mhm.
We've met you at camp. We see what you're like at camp as well. We've heard the story of the quarter pounder and cheese.
Yes.
We've heard all those kinds of stories.
Shout out to
before.
Tim.
Shout out to Tim for that one.
Sanderson.
Yeah, Sanderson.
We want to know
Sandman painting.
who is
Like, subscribe, share.
Yeah.
who is Zach Fontaine the person?
I will say, if you know me on stage, you know me off stage. I'm very, very transparent, and there's not a whole lot that I don't share on stage about my life. But I'm from a big family, obviously. I'm sure most people, at least at church, know this, but 4 sisters, youngest of 4 sisters. So, I mean, I always laugh and joke around with Jess, because any kind of marriage books that we read, sometimes I'm more like the female and she's more like the male when it comes to how we think and how we speak and how we share. It's really funny. But yeah, off stage, like out of occupation, it's I'm just a typical dude. I enjoy hunting, I enjoy fishing, I enjoy just hanging out, I enjoy shopping most of the time in my life, because I grew up with 4 sisters, a mom and a dad, obviously. We spend a lot of time at the mall.
Yeah.
So I think Jess likes that now, because we can just go hang out at the mall. We'll just go do that. So
Yeah.
Apart from that, yeah, no, I think it's, yeah, I really just enjoy that. I'm an extroverted person. I love sports. Yeah, I'm kind of like Tim, like he told us this morning, where I might suck at it for a bit, but then I absolutely perfect it. You know? So just kidding. Yeah, I think that's, ask more questions if I didn't get as deep as you want.
But, so just expound on what you said, that sometimes your wife responds certain ways like a typical male, and you respond, like you just said, like a typical
Is your
female.
wife, does she have brothers?
One brother.
One brother?
Yeah, younger.
No sisters?
No sisters.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm a more open book, I would say. Most men aren't. I am. I grew up with 4 sisters, so I wasn't waiting to be asked. I just told, right? Whereas Jess, my wife, grew up with 1 brother. So typically, I mean, I'm just an open book. I'll just talk. I have no problem with that. She can ask me, how's my day? And I'll tell her about my entire day.
Right.
Yeah.
Whereas the opposite would be, how's your day? Oh, it's good.
Like most guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So similar to that, where I'm like, okay, well, what'd you do? You know, and that's just how it is, right? Like, and then it's, which is fair, but just different upbringing in that sense, right? I didn't have any brothers.
Yeah.
So for me, it was just like estrogen house. So, so here we are.
Yeah.
And so that's the biggest thing when it comes to like books, or like I'm not much of a reader when it comes to anything apart from self-help or something that I learn from. I don't really care about fiction. I'll watch shows and that kind of stuff if I want that kind of fix, or movies. But when it comes to that, so that's the biggest thing. When you start reading them, you're like, oh, that's like, sounds more like it'll be a stereotypical story about a marriage in this book. And I'm like, I don't relate to that man at all. She's like, I don't really relate to the girl. I'm like, I know, it's weird, right? So yeah, it's a little different in that way, but yeah.
So you say you grew up with your 4 sisters. You're the youngest of your whole family. We heard a lot about from Kevin Lehman about the birth order, right? You actually kind of fall into the oldest as well as the youngest in the family. Do you find that dynamic is true when you're dealing with other family members in your family?
The dynamic of being
So like your
To be a
personality
duo.
typically being like because the oldest typically has a certain personality, right? And the youngest will also have a certain personality. The youngest is usually like can get into trouble
Fly
and
by the seat of
fly by
their
the seat of their
pants.
pants.
I definitely am like that, 100%.
So
Yeah.
you don't fall into the reserved older child.
Not reserved, but I have to read the birth order book again to remember exactly what the eldest child. But I'm definitely stereotypical youngest for
Yeah.
sure. I'm adventurous. I like risk, all that kind of stuff.
Get in trouble.
Yeah. Oh yeah. All yeah. My schooling years. Oh man, I was in trouble all the time. That's just how it worked. And the eldest though, there's other sides of things with eldest that I do believe that when I choose to be like that, I can very easily be like that and not
Yeah.
have to put a front on to be like that, right?
Yeah.
Like I can genuinely be that way at times too, because there's also, I think, isn't the birth order youngest, if there's a certain amount of years, but also first boy, I think,
Yeah.
or first of a certain gender.
If there's more than
is a
4
reset
years
almost
between
too,
them, it resets to the
which is not me because Michaela's 3 years older than me.
okay.
Um,
But because you're the
first boy, I think that's where it comes in. So I
Yeah.
definitely think I definitely am on both sides.
And
Yeah.
your parents were, I believe, done at 4 girls.
Yes.
And what's the story with them getting together and praying that whatever your dad had was miraculously reversed
Yes.
so
Yeah.
they could have a baby brother?
Apparently they prayed me in every night.
This was
Is
your
what I've
sisters,
heard.
right?
Yeah. Because they wanted a brother. They wanted a brother. They wanted a brother. And at that point, obviously my mom and dad decided they were done having kids. And so my dad went for the typical snip that every other dad goes to when they're done having kids. And so I think my parents found it pretty funny in the sense that like, keep praying, but like at least biologically this is impossible, but, and then, yeah, I think it was one, I don't know how longer later, but obviously they had a conversation, my mom and my dad, and they're like, my mom's like, I think I'm pregnant. And she's like, there's no way. Right. And then I happen to also be a boy, which is crazy because they already have 4 girls. Sometimes you just feel like that's just if you have girls, you have girls. Yeah. That's what it feels like sometimes. But, and so, yes, it was very, very crazy. It was very crazy. It was quite the miracle story, to be honest, because I definitely.
When was the first time
Yeah.
you remember hearing that story?
Oh man.
How young were you?
I mean, my parents told probably young, like I think probably 7 or 8 or 9, somewhere in there for sure. More of like we prayed for you every night and here you are. And you don't understand that as a kid. You're like, oh yeah, sweet, right? And then you start to understand things when you're maybe mid-teens or maybe later in your teens to go, oh, like that was like legitimately almost impossible. Like at least from the doctor's point of view, they'd be like, oh no, you're good. You're not gonna have any kids. So that was crazy for me. Like I was like, once you get older enough to understand the actual what actually happened.
Yeah.
Right. And then you're like, oh wow. Yeah. So
I remember it must have been a decade ago when our kids were quite a bit younger, and we have 3 girls as well, not 4 but 3, and we were done having kids too. And I had the laser, not the whatever. See the smoke coming up. I always remember that.
really?
Yeah. And,
Well, just wait.
and it must have been 2 years after we had Avery, our youngest. And we had a conversation with your dad, and we said, yeah, we're done. And he told us the story, which we'd heard before, but he told us too directly. And I said, don't worry, we're not teaching our kids the power of prayer. And he laughed and he laughed and he laughed and he laughed. And it's funny you mentioned about having all girls, because my uncle actually has 8 girls and 3 wives. So he kept having to have girls, trying to have girls, and trying to have boys, and never actually had a boy.
And my family is the opposite. My mom had 2 brothers. She had 3 sons. And then she had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 grandsons before having her first granddaughter. Before having her first girl.
That's unreal.
So she lived her whole life without having a girl until my daughter was born. And then my son had a daughter the next year.
Oh my goodness.
Now it's kind of gone. Well,
Totally.
We'll see if it goes the other way now, right? So as our kids start to have kids and everything like that. So
and I'm always curious. Some friends have said they know how to get whatever gender they want, and I'm like, yeah, sure.
What are you looking forward to the most about being a parent?
I don't know, you see a lot of other parents and this love that everyone describes that you get when you have a kid, and they also say a lot of the things about love where it's like it's a love you've never given before either, like of how deep this love is, which is almost mind-boggling to me because obviously I love my wife every day more, it seems like, but every day I feel like I can't love her more. Like I'm like I'm loving her as deep as I possibly can, and so to think that there's a different kind of love that somehow still overtakes you again. I think that's what I'm most looking forward to is I experience love, and I feel like being a parent probably establishes an understanding within you also to understand God's love for you as well in a different capacity. So I teach about God's love, I experience God's love, but to think that I haven't loved something as much as I will love this baby makes me think that I don't know a whole lot about love. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I
So,
think that your messages could really change.
oh, they will.
And very similar to like David speaking after he had his 1st son, and when Jeremy and Tamara had their kids and stuff like that. Like it does change your mindset on what love is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I bet. So I'm looking forward to that, and just to, I don't know, just to raise your own child and just see what that's all about. And it's obviously a daughter is what we've been told. I've heard that they can be wrong, so we'll see once the day comes, I guess. But
You looked really close at the images.
yeah, I'm like,
What?
yeah, I know.
I know.
Yeah, I know.
Did
Oh,
you do the 3D one?
not yet, because everyone tells me to do it like third trimester, like when there's something more, I guess.
Yeah.
Or when you go to
Second to third, you'll be okay. You're gonna see a
totally like 20-week ultrasound was like a very, very small baby, right? You're talking like a whatever it is, an orange or something of the size, right? So you're like, so then when I looked up paying for another 3D or type of ultrasound, they always say wait till you're like 34 weeks, 35 weeks. That's where you get like the best types of pictures for these things if you want a keepsake or if you want something that you can frame and put on your wall. So I don't know if we'll do it or not. I haven't really chatted about it, to be honest, but it
it's
would
really
be cool. Yeah.
We did it with Cruz. Sorry, Eden. We didn't do it with our daughter, Eden.
Yeah.
We did it with our son, Cruz, because we wanted to find out. So we went to St. Boniface, and they don't tell you the sex of the baby there because they're a Catholic hospital, right?
Oh, interesting.
So they won't actually tell you. So we went to Baby Moon and got the 3D ultrasound because we actually planned. We got the ultrasound, and we were planning to go to the States the next day to go baby shopping, like get all the stuff for the baby, right? Like everything, whatever color. And so we went to Baby Moon the next, like when we found out we couldn't get the sex, we went to Baby Moon. And we're like, okay, we need to know what the sex is. They're like, you sure? We're like, yeah. We need to know today because we're leaving in 2 hours to go to the States, right? So we found out. They told us. They gave us the pictures, the videos, and everything.
Wow, that's cool.
And if it's your first, I would definitely suggest doing it because it's something that's very like it's memorable, and you can look back on it. You can watch the video of it and everything like that. And
Totally.
I actually think it looks like Cruz in the pictures.
I believe that.
Like
you see some kids
facial features.
Yeah, that's what I mean. You see some pictures of children when they're young and then when they're 18, and you're like, those actually look like two separate people sometimes, right? And then you have those ones where it's like, I mean, every year that kid gets older, you're like, it's the same kid. You know what I mean? It's just a little bit bigger or a little bit older, you know? So that's cool though. That's really cool. I would love to do it.
And we have that side by side right now, Cruz and Cruz now.
Now I have to look that up. I have to go find it.
Side by side, and then they can be the judge of that they look the same.
Thank you, Tim.
In the womb versus
Tim will do this thing where he goes, and we had a video clip of that.
Yeah.
And now I gotta look up the video.
He has to edit everything.
I gotta look up the video clip. I gotta like find it somewhere.
Yeah.
And he has to because I just said it.
Yeah.
And I gotta edit. Now I gotta find this Baby Moon thing. I think it's actually right behind.
Or you can just say no.
No, Greg doesn't.
So that's one of my things. Is it's very hard for me to say no to things.
So, and that's a good
to know.
transition.
Why?
Because
okay.
The inability or ability to say no. We kind of talked about that. You talked about that about FOMO versus JOMO.
Which, by the way, if you ever want to go to the mall and give me the same challenge you gave your wife to talk to any stranger and you'll buy me anything you want, I will do it.
In a heartbeat.
I'll do it multiple times.
Don't do that. Just don't.
And act like you know them and they're the long lost friend.
I would do that.
Don't do that. Do that to me because I'll be completely embarrassed. But to him,
I wouldn't like to do that either. I would do it, but I don't know if I'd like. Yeah.
You don't know if you'd like to do it?
No, if one thing I've learned from Jess is which is my wife, you can't buy her.
Right.
Cannot.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had the typical guy questions to her where I'm like, okay, $1 billion, okay, cash on your front step.
Yeah.
If you just simply do this. No.
So her
I'm like,
love
what?
language is not gifts.
No, it is gifts.
Yeah.
What?
But to her, it's just one of her. She has a 3-way tie. It's unbelievable.
Of course.
Yes. and so for her, she always, I'm like, well, what's there to lose? She's like, my dignity. I'm like, okay, that's fair. Yeah, I mean,
Oh,
like,
come
she goes that
on.
way with it. And I'm like,
Yeah.
so she's taught me the sense of also thinking like, okay, I don't know if there's certain things I just wouldn't do. Right. Whereas back in the day before I met her, I'd probably, if you said $100 million or something like that, I'd be like, sure.
Yeah.
That's a hypothetical. If there was actually
I know.
$100 million
I
there,
know.
we would all do absolutely everything, and that includes moving a dead body
Well, painting houses.
Hey.
and then moving the dead body.
Anyway, well, even on our guys trip, like I would probably talk to more people than most people would too. And it's just as he was gonna ask is you're gonna talk about FOMO and JOMO, right? So like the fear of missing out and the joy of missing out are your two topics from. We actually talked about that probably like 20 episodes ago.
That was like a year ago, I think. My message, maybe.
It would have
somewhere in
been
there.
like October, November of last year. Yeah.
Okay.
And the main thing is being an extrovert. Do you tie that into being FOMO?
Extroverted people, I would say, almost always tie that into FOMO. Almost. Whereas for me, I have a wife that is, and obviously in that message it says that, a JOMO type of wife, right?
Yeah.
So she's taught me that aspect for sure. There's times where I'm just like, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to just be at home and just like, I don't need to go out, right? Like, so that aspect of JOMO is definitely there, but I'd say inherently I'm definitely like the characteristics of Zach's personality is definitely, it's definitely FOMO, like almost, but I find the busier you get in your life, the more you kind of lean towards JOMO though at the same time,
Yeah.
right? You kind of learn what your personality is and you get those times. Like I'm an extroverted person, so I am people charged if I go hang out, but I'm not people charged on not forced interactions, but interactions that have to do with work.
Yeah.
That doesn't necessarily charge me up. I could finish an entire day of socializing.
Yeah.
And I'll say, Jess, what do you want to do tonight? And she'll be like, what do you mean? What do you want to do tonight? Like, we've been both super busy and just like chatting with everyone. I'm like, I know. And it was great. But that doesn't fill my reservoir of socializing. It just fills a different reservoir, right?
It's a work.
Totally. It's
Yeah.
different. Whereas she's like, I'm good to go home. Right. Like,
Well, and that's what the definition. I don't know if you would agree with that, but we had a guest on a number of weeks ago saying the definition of an extrovert is someone that gains energy by being with people.
mhm.
And the introvert is someone who loses energy the
Mhm.
more they. And the interesting
But
thing
also
is,
gains energy by recharging
Yeah,
on their own.
right. So, and we kind of came up to the idea that Greg is naturally an introvert in that he
No.
loses energy.
Right. Yeah.
I would say that.
when
Like,
he
yeah.
interacts with people. However, he's taught himself principles of being extroverted,
Mhm.
so that he will appear to be an extrovert on the surface, but behind the scenes, he will, after a weekend with the family, will just need 12 hours of sleep and.
Oh, after camp week,
Oh, yeah.
it's like exhausting.
Totally it
for
is. Well,
me.
this is every single day,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And it's nonstop and no
Yep.
sleep.
Whereas
Yeah.
for me, I'm the opposite, where I actually gain energy when I talk to people,
Mhm.
but I've learned introverted tendencies in that I just have habits of wanting to be by
Alone.
myself and
Mhm.
avoiding people.
Yep.
Not all the time, but I get in those traps, right?
Totally.
So,
Yeah.
would you agree with kind of those definitions? And where do
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the part that people don't usually talk about is that an extrovert still has a social battery. It just takes a lot longer to drain, right? Like
Yeah.
there is a time where I'm like, okay, right? Like just depends on what your work is too, right? Like for me, it's like I typically am the person that is going to keep the conversation going. I'm typically the person that wants to make sure I am doing my best to value those that I'm talking to. Yeah. So when you go through there, you have a little bit, you're exerting a ton of energy.
Yeah.
My social battery is fine unless it's always about work. Then I'll get drained real quick.
Yeah.
Right. But if it's just chill and there's no expectation, I guess, behind it, then I can find that to be the case. But my social battery can get drained. It just takes a lot longer for mine to get drained than it does Jessica's. Right. Whereas Jessica can have one day at school in a work social environment and be drained.
Yeah.
Whereas I probably don't ever like, I'll go home and be like, hey, you want to go to your parents' house and just hang out for a barbecue or something like that? And I'll be after a Sunday, which is typically my social battery is gone on Sundays. But my social battery doesn't really drain when it comes to just work socializing.
Yeah.
But like I said, so I definitely agree with those with that definition. Yeah.
So speaking of losing energy or gaining energy at work, how have you found, because you were thrust into this being a senior pastor fairly quickly, maybe unexpectedly. How have you found that transition? What have been the challenges? What have been the things that have surprised you? Explain some of that transition.
I'm a I don't know. I'm a big one day at a time guy now. When you look into a position like that, you think very far, and a position like that stresses the crap out of you if you think too far. Like for example, October, I might have spoke 2 or 3 times, right? Which was more than I normally am used to speaking on the 595, which is our main campus church stage.
Yep.
Where I was a youth pastor, and I probably did speak 3 or 4 times, but youth was just different. It was just like it wasn't I don't know, as mentally taxing when you were thinking about having to prep for it, or there's more of an expectation with adults that want to be at church, right? Whereas youth, they kind of go there for socializing, I would say, more than anything. You have the average person that was raised in a Christian home and they're like, oh, I can't wait for the message tonight. But 99% of them aren't like that. Yeah. So there you have less expectation, because you could do the most amazing message and still might not connect with all of them, right? Whereas I could do the most amazing quote unquote a message on a Sunday, and it'll be much more rewarding, I guess, in that sense, because you have people that are coming for the service and for the message and for the worship.
Yeah.
So that's the different aspect of it. So that in October, you speak 3 times. I just finished June, and we're still in June, I guess. Sorry, we're after Canada Day. And in June, it was, I think I spoke 12 times. Oh, so wow. It's like a completely, but if you would have told me in October, second I became senior pastor, you're going to speak 12 times this month, I would have been like, there's no way. Like, there's no chance. Yeah. Right. So now I just take it kind of month to month, and you just slowly are finding where you fit and how you are. And that's why I said in the beginning of our chat today that there's an aspect where it's like, I can only be me. And the second I try to be someone else, it doesn't work. Yeah. It just doesn't. Your social battery will drain far more because you're trying to prop yourself up, or you're trying to be someone you're not, or you're trying to figure out, how would Greg and Tim accept me? And I will be that person. Now I'm like, I don't give a crap either or if you guys accept me or not.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
You're gonna go.
We have to go to this right away.
Yeah. All right, cut to a different segment.
No, this isn't a different segment. You just said the keyword, and if this was Pee-wee's Playhouse, all the alarms would go off. You probably don't know what Pee-wee's Playhouse is.
No.
Pee-wee's Playhouse.
Anyway,
I'm guessing you're talking about crap, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
They have a word of the day on Pee-wee's Playhouse, and then when they say it, like everybody jumps out and
we have a clip now.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
The word crap.
Yeah.
We were actually talking about like language that's acceptable and not acceptable and that type of thing. You kind of just led right into it, so that's why I got to jump right into it right away.
Yep.
Is that something that is acceptable nowadays?
We had a full. I'll just.
Yeah, you step in.
Before he wants a second to think about the answer. Anyway, we had a whole segment about swearing in the arts. What's acceptable? What's not? What is a swear? I think we brought up the example of the Taylor Swift album, and where is the line? All those things, right? So we've talked about it in the past, and I said an inference. Well, what is crap? Not a swear, but the S word is. And I even said, I think went back when you were in school, you would get demerits at school for saying the word.
And then I missed the ice cream party at the end of the year.
Yes.
You missed it?
Many times.
Yeah. But the C word got you no demerits, right? Which is crap, right? Yeah. So that's kind of where we're talking about. So he was going to continue.
So yeah, I'm just wondering, do you get any demerits?
I have a funny and probably frowned upon opinion on swearing. Biblically, we talk about swearing in the sense of God's name.
Yep.
In whatever capacity that name would be,
In vain,
whether
yeah.
it's Jesus Christ, whether it's, I mean, you could use any name, God, Yahweh, I don't care what you use, whatever it is, if it's in a way that it's in vain. But I think Jordan Peterson said this one time where he said, people think that just saying, oh my God, is a swear. I don't like saying it.
No.
And so sometimes like a normal person, I'll say it just because it just comes out. Or you listen to a lot of things or talk to a lot of people that don't care about that. And sometimes you can have yourself just subconsciously it come out. Yep. I'm not a fan of it because I do have reverence for God. And so I don't want to say that, right? Yep. My dad told a story in when he was a paramedic way back in the day. He said he had a coworker that always said Jesus Christ. And so he started using his wife's name in vain. So
your dad started using
his coworker's wife's name.
Oh, okay.
And so he'd be like, I don't know what the name it is, but let's just say
Karen.
I don't know, Karen. Yeah.
That would be.
Yeah. And so he would use the first name and her last name whenever he was upset at work. And at some point the guy was just like, can you stop, please? And like, I don't want you to use that name. He's like, well, now you know how it feels when you use my God's name in vain, right? So everyone understands that. If we said your wives' names, at some point it would bother you, especially if I'm using it not as a joke, but genuinely angry. I'm swearing right now using your wife's name. Like that would not be fun. And so for me, I'm different because I think swearing is more in social circles, which social circles is going to accept you or not. Yeah. I think, and drinking is another thing that always comes up within church all the time. And for me, it's very similar. You can ask a question of whether you do or not. And there's typically one answer that is going to be positive no matter what. In the sense of swearing, if you choose not to swear, you're never going to be put in a situation that would react negatively on you. Yeah. Right. If you do swear, you might be put in a situation where the people you are with are like, oh my gosh, like this guy just like he swears all the time. I can't stand it. Right. So there's aspects of that. And the drinking is the same, right? You have a lot of people that are totally okay with it and a lot of people that absolutely hate it. If you stay on the camp of not drinking, you'll appease everyone. If you stay on the camp of drinking, you'll only appease half. Right. It's usually how it works. Right. Yeah. And so it's finding that happy balance between that. So for me, I mean, farmers and different things, they have different lingo with the way that they swear. Mm-hmm. And kids, right? I don't want kids to say words that you don't want them to say. Like there's a big thing with that. So for me, it's almost all Lord's name in vain stuff. But I think people take that out of context because I love when someone describes the Lord's name in vain. What does that actually mean? Well, I think it's for me, it's more justifying something you do that's not biblical, but justifying it through God's name. You know what I mean? Like, this is wrong, but you somehow justify your actions through God and something is not right. That would be more so a blasphemous thing for me than saying, oh my God, even though, oh my God is not something I like to say, you know? And so for me, that's where I kind of sit with the whole swearing capacity. Crap is different. I mean, I get it, right? Not socially acceptable, maybe with parents who have a 7-year-old that's in the auditorium that's trying not to get them to say crap. Because as a kid, a word like that would lead to more words, or would be like
it's a gateway word.
It could be for a 7-year-old, right? It's not a gateway word for a 14-year-old or an 18-year-old or a 30-year-old. But I do believe the younger you are, there is an aspect of sheltering that has to happen so that they don't go that far with it, right? So
I liked every time your dad used to say hell on stage.
Yeah,
and he'd always have to say, "It's in the Bible, guys."
Yeah,
like.
Yeah.
I'm allowed to say the word that's in the Bible, right?
Yep.
So it's kind of it's gone from like him saying that word and explaining it to like we really shouldn't have to do that, right? We're all adults,
totally
in the sanctuary. We're all grown people. We've heard worse.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Well, I've had parents that talk to me that say they don't send their kids to youth anymore because they heard a swear there from one of the other students that are there. And I always just respond with, okay, take them out of youth. But I said, they're gonna be at somewhere. They're gonna be,
send them to inner city youth.
Yeah, that's what I mean, right?
I sent my kids there one time and they're like
eye opening. Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
and that's the big
brain
thing
about a gun, right?
No, we already had guns. Oh, cut that out. We have no guns.
For hunting.
Yeah.
Hey, yeah.
For hunting. Guns are for hunting.
Of course it is. Yes.
If we could go back to when you said you're very real, right? It seemed like pastors, and you just turned 30, so you're very
29, but
yeah, 29. Oh, by the way, you said he turned 30.
It said online he turned
What are you
30.
looking at? Anyway, so
then online did I say that? You on Reddit again?
No, not on Reddit. Is your birthday December 30th? No, so there's misinformation. December 15th.
Yeah, I don't
And
know
of
where you're getting-
2024.
Yeah, 30.
Yeah.
I'll be 30 this year. Yeah.
I was given wrong information before. Anyway, so then my question stands that I wanted to ask: when you're turning 30, where's the guys trip, and where do we sign up?
Yeah. The guys trip 30 is that usually?
Or are we planning?
have to do a guys
every
trip
decade. You
for a
plan a
decade.
guys trip.
Oh wow.
Not when you're 20. You're just graduating and stuff like that. You don't have the money to
The
do
more elaborate the
But
trip, the less likely Tim's gonna
starting
join you.
at
Yeah.
30, the rule is you plan a guys trip. If you want us to plan the trip, that's what we do.
Oh.
But I was just wondering if you had something in mind already.
I don't know if I trust you guys to plan a guys trip for me.
What? No, we would take
Wow.
we would take into consideration what you like and plan accordingly.
Yeah.
We plan our trips to what we like because that's what we like.
It's hard because the 30 comes with a 3-month-old baby now. So.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's what I'm
Another
saying.
reason is to go on a
That's
guys
what I'm
trip.
saying.
Right? I know. I like, yeah, I get it. For trips, I'm always just like, I'd love to be able to go on a vacation with my wife.
Yeah.
Right. So that's why for me, it's like, it's not really fun making a bunch of memories and then sending texts to your wife who's back at home
Yeah.
taking care of a baby.
So
in
you
your
wouldn't
house.
you wouldn't be in for an all-inclusive trip to Mexico with the guys, say in November.
in November?
His
No.
birthday's not until
There's
December.
no chance.
No, I'm giving the example of the other one.
Oh, the other one, yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
we have a friend who always invites us to an all-inclusive trip to Mexico with the guys. We're like, that's something we do with our wives. We're not interested.
Yeah.
But every year, guys, you want to go to Mexico?
But you said you're into like hunting and fishing and all that kind of stuff, right? So like I'm guessing Jess isn't into
No.
hunting and fishing. So you're gonna do that with guys.
Totally.
So like our guys trips, like when we go, it's like baseball or football or basketball, right? Like because our wives aren't gonna go and do it. But yes, like an all-inclusive trip to Mexico, or if we're gonna go somewhere like hot or something, Europe or something, our wives have to go with us.
Totally.
generally, right? So,
Yeah. And that's the thing. It's like with vacations, you kind of want to come back with your wife and be re-energized and
Yeah.
like have good memories and stuff. So for me, it's like, it's fun to go on a guys trip. I just finished one to a lake, a flying lake lodge for fishing, right? It was 4 days and it was a blast. I enjoyed it. It was
You got a
all
master
guys.
angler?
Burbot. Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
We have a picture up here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, now I got to ask Zach for the picture.
Yeah, exactly.
This is fun.
Yeah.
This is
It's
I
a
don't
small,
edit anything.
I know. It's a small fish that's a master. The picture doesn't do it justice. It's
No.
like an eel, right? But
Okay.
anyways, now we're going down a different rabbit.
So
rabbit.
I'm gonna ask.
You don't have your pin on your hat today.
I'm not wearing my Bass Pro fishing hat.
Oh,
so
It's definitely not
yeah.
fast.
Yeah.
So I have a question I was going to ask originally before you told us your actual birthday. So you're a young pastor.
Mhm.
It seems like pastors in the last generation were very much don't share anything about your personal life, and they kind of built themselves up to this pedestal where people really didn't treat them as almost human beings who make errors, make mistakes.
Right.
And we've moved into this when the young pastors of today, they share more about their personal life. I'm a person just like you, and they want to connect to the individual. Is there kind of a line where you straddle so that you want to share your humanity, but you don't want to share too much from the pulpit, because some people have that perception still that pastors aren't human, they don't have issues?
The line for me is I would almost share anything. The line for me is what's the purpose of sharing the information?
Right.
I believe that everyone should be on a need to know basis with every information that you share. There's certain things that it's like, who cares? There's certain things that you share about your wife or about your marriage or about your home or about anything, your kids, how you raise them. And there's certain things when you live a very public life, like that's my 90% of my life is very public, like everything about it. There's not really another way of doing it. So you just got to accept that's what you are in. Every senior pastor is a celebrity in his own church. So it's just how it works. Doesn't matter if your church is 200 or 10,000. And so for me, in a one-on-one conversation, there's probably not much I wouldn't share if I believed that I was helping the person that was sitting across from me, or I felt like I could meet that person where they're at with a story that helps humanize myself because of the I guess inherent quality of people seeing someone on stage with a mic and instantly puts them on a pedestal. Like as a pastor or as a public speaker, you don't need to put yourself on a pedestal. Like people put you on the pedestal instantly. That's just how it works. And that's why with church, we're very protective over who gets the mic, because you are, no matter what, on a pedestal when that happens. So for me, I'll share something that I feel helps people connect to my messages. I don't use that lingo very often, where it's like, I'm a person just like you. I feel like that should be automatic. People should know that. Like, me and my wife fight just like anyone else. We go to bed angry just like anyone else. So all these different things that happen in a normal marriage happens in my marriage too. And we're going to have fun with this kid too. And we're going to disagree with how we discipline this child and how we talk to this child. And there's going to be a lot of different things that go on. But for me, it's a need to know basis on how I can maybe help if I can, or if that person's looking for help. I have no problem sharing almost anything. I just think people share too quickly for no reason. My question is always, what's the reason for sharing it? Right. Yeah. And,
when you share stuff about Jess,
and
she's sitting just off to your left when you're on the stage, do you ever look over and think, maybe I shouldn't have said that?
No.
You get the response afterwards where I then you realize you should have shared that?
No, because I don't like.
You want to buy her first, I'm assuming.
No. Most of the things I share about Jess, like there's a lot of things that hit my messages that are rabbit trail type of things, right? They're not in my notes. Okay. If I'm not behind my iPad and I'm walking in front, there's a good chance I'm saying something not on my iPad.
Yeah.
Almost a great chance. And so we'll joke about it at different times within my messages, saying how all my messages have to do with our conversations we've had that week or this month. Yeah. And she'll joke about the fact that my messages are all pertain to her because of how it works. And we laugh at that. I'm like, well, obviously conversations are going to come up, but at the same time, it's like not even her. It's going to pertain to a good amount of men and women, just because like that's how it is. The beautiful side of my wife is that she's not a stereotypical pastor's wife, which I love. I love it. And so she does even out the aspects of my life that I might not have had in my childhood or upbringing, because I have been a pastor's kid my entire life, right? So I grew up in this, and it's a completely different life, right? Yeah. So it's a life that not many people can relate to, and it works the other way too, where I can't really relate to a normal childhood either, because I was at church a lot, I was around people a lot, I was walking the halls of our building at 11 p.m. on a Wednesday night as my parents were in meetings and different things like that. Like, that's
people have always known you.
Totally.
Right.
Yeah. And so you grew up as a pastor's kid too, and you go to the school that your dad is the president of. And so that changes everything right there again. So everything's changed all the time, and it works for your favor and it works against you too, right? Yeah. On one part, whereas one part, there might be benefits to that, but sometimes those benefits are also the cons, because people view you differently and can't relate to you, or your friendships aren't as maybe deep because they can't relate. They're just like, well, you're just the pastor's kid, whatever it is, right? So there's multiple facets to the question for me in that sense. Yeah. But
I would imagine being a spouse of a pastor isn't as easy as some people would assume it is.
Mm-hmm.
How was that conversation, and did that take some convincing?
Convincing for me to be senior pastor?
No, convincing, talking to your wife about being the wife of a senior pastor.
Well, she was already my wife when I became senior pastor,
of course.
So she had to.
But you weren't the senior pastor.
No, I wasn't. When it came down to it, I think most of our marriage, I've accepted the fact that she can be her, and I'm like, I don't need you to be anything else. Like, if funny religious thinking is that the wife of the pastor needs to be involved in women's ministry, needs to play the piano and sing, or needs to do something with their kids' ministry, and it's like, no, none of that's true. Yeah. A proper marriage, I think, you understand that you're both walking a path, and it's okay to hold hands and be on different paths where you walk together and support each other. Yeah. So that was the biggest thing. Is I don't expect anything. I actually encourage her sometimes not to walk the halls with me, because I just know that she that's just not her. Right. Yeah. She's amazing. She's loving. She's can have a great conversation with people, and she's good. She just loves smaller groups. She doesn't like a big group. I can walk the halls, and I can talk to 1,000 people on a Sunday and be fine. Right.
She's been one of my son's favorite teachers.
Really?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Because he had her last year as a teacher.
Yeah.
Like, he always talked about her. Like, And you know when they like their teacher is when they start talking about their teacher.
Totally.
Right?
I'm sure. Yeah.
So like as you grew up, you probably had certain teachers that you would go home and be like, "Hey, this teacher did this," or this teacher, yeah, like
Probably. Yeah.
Right.
I have a terrible memory when it comes to my
And-
childhood.
I think Cruz was saying he liked Jess almost as much as the substitute teacher he had for a few classes this year.
He said his substitute teacher was really weird.
Yeah.
If you ask him right now, he would be like, he was weird.
That was a really cool substitute. Anyway,
But I wanna change topics for a second
can I
here.
change the topic? Because I think I know what you're doing.
No, I'm gonna change the topic and then you can ask your question. Okay.
All right, might be
You'll
the same
know.
question, but go ahead.
It'll be the same question. So I'm gonna ask this question and then Tim has a different thing about
It's
it.
the same exact question. Go ahead.
So from stage.
Same question.
See, we're the same brain now.
Yeah.
You're standing on stage 3 times a Sunday and you're watching everybody out there. A, does anybody ever distract you? No, you don't have to name names or anything like that, but like, do people distract you? And B, what is the craziest thing you've seen from stage while you're preaching?
People distracting me. If you asked me this question like a year ago, I might say absolutely. I mean, like anything that distracts you guys probably distracts me a little bit. Like, and so loud noises, random crazy sneezes, like all that kind of stuff,
Phones
right?
going off.
Phones going off at the worst times. You're like, really? like at this time, usually the worst time for your phone to go off is my last 3 minutes of my message where I've brought everyone to a very quiet and I don't know, introspective
Now
moment.
it's time to bow for prayer.
Totally.
Yeah.
Or some Family Guy ringtone. You're like, oh my gosh. You're like, seriously now? Like, as far as, so I guess to answer the first question, yes, for sure. But you get good at being distracted for a split moment and then just getting back to it. Right.
Yep.
And then the second thing would be, what's the craziest thing? I mean, the craziest thing, I don't know. People yell out or just funny laughs where it's one person that laughs and you're like, everyone heard that clearly, right? So they always have that. Nothing crazy has happened yet, I'd say.
You've never seen anybody doing anything or like sleeping.
Oh, sleeping all the time. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, there's always someone in the audience that's sleeping.
That nods
Oh
off.
yeah, I mean, oh yeah.
Does that distract you?
If you focus on it, it does. But I've just trained myself to see it and
To
go,
look
okay,
somewhere else.
yeah. Or I just do a big loud noise right after I see that, just to make them like startled. Right? It's almost always, man. Almost always.
You've
man.
never caught me, have you?
No, every time. Yeah, yeah.
Your favorite side, left or right, when you're standing looking out?
I don't have a favorite side, but I have a habitual side, which is left.
Yeah.
And I train myself to go right because I'm just so habitually trained to go left. I don't know why. It just
So-
happened.
The reason why I ask is because I do photography,
Mhm.
right? And I volunteer with photography, and I'm always taking pictures, and I'm on your right,
Mhm.
and I'm standing there because the other background is the drums and like a messier sound system and everything like that is all in the background. So I always want the background that has just the piano, with
Right.
nothing, right?
Yeah.
And you stay on that side, so that's why I asked.
Totally.
I'm like, why is he still over
It's
there?
good
Like,
to know that
come
because,
over,
oh yeah.
come over to me.
But those are the types of things that you that just habitually start that you don't know until someone mentions it to you. I think someone said that to me one of these days. Like you talk, I think it was a comment card or something where it came in. It's like you speak a lot to the left side of the room, and I was like, oh okay. And that's what when I'm on stage and I say I do try to correct myself in most comment cards that come in, unless I'm like, okay, like this one's ridiculous. You know what I mean? Because I want to become the best speaker I can become so that I can communicate and connect. If I'm not communicating with people properly, then they're not going to accept the message that I have either. Right. And so, yeah, 100%. Left side is a habit of mine. 100%.
And I think it's more so in the intros
that
you're in the left side. Like when you're starting everything up, you're on the left side. And then you will progressively move to the right. And I think
I
maybe
always
it's
start on the
because
right, actually.
Now you do.
No, always. My first line almost always be at the right side of the stage because I'm allowing the table to get placed and everything on the
and
table to
keeping
be
it off
put.
camera.
Yes. But then I moved back to there, put my iPad out. And I mean, in Calgary the other day, I had my iPad, I opened it up and I use Pages just because it's Mac's thing, right? Apple.
Yep.
And I click, and usually I have it all loaded up, but I did child dedication, which is for those, I guess, watching or listening. It's when I pray over families and their kids they want to dedicate to raising their kids in the way of God and identity, whatever it is. And so I have two different sets of notes. So I'll have my one note on pages for child dedication of like, what are the vows that I'm bringing them through? And then I'll switch to my other message. Well, I exited out of my child dedication notes, and my saved message notes were just not there. And I was like, oh my goodness. I was like, what am I going to do right now? And so I'm like, what in the world? So I'm like, now I think I started praying just to start the message off. And I like kind of exited out of pages, opened back up, and then updated. And then it went, whoop, and it came up. I was like, oh my goodness. So I was very thankful with that. Like I could get by, but sometimes you have what you're speaking about, you're passionate about it, you're excited about it. And yeah, I mean, like it's 30 minutes. I don't want to memorize that. It just becomes robotic. Right. Yeah. So, it's just kind of funny that way, but yes.
Yeah. So the reason why,
what's the craziest thing?
So first of all, I want to tell a quick story that you reminded me of, because, when we were having church at 725 during the time we don't speak of, 725 is the adjoining building, the smaller building. There were 3 people in the front row, and I was leading singing that day. And it was Greg, his son, and one other person. And right before, must have been 10 seconds before we starting to sing and welcome people, good morning, and all that stuff, I hear a voice in my ears, and it's our Debbie, who does her sound, in my ears saying, "Just be aware, Tim, there's someone in the front row who sings really, really, really loud and really, really poorly." And these are the 3 people. So I was pretty sure it was a third person, but it was kind of funny that Greg and his son were in the front row. But the reason, anyway, that's beside the point. The reason why he asked that question is because I have a story. One time I saw something very distracting in the second row, and it was second row, right side, if you're looking from the back. Yeah. And it was someone in the first row. And he is a pastor that will remain nameless. Yeah. And during the service, he was looking at purchasing shoes on his phone.
That wasn't me.
I cannot confirm it was you. And so
he was going to remain your nameless.
And so we have a segment.
Where were you sitting? Beside me?
I was sitting behind you.
Oh, so you were eavesdropping.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway,
that's why I have a privacy thing now, so I can buy shoes front row when I'm preaching.
So we have.
You have to note this about Tim: if you leave anything out,
his eyes are on it.
He looks at it. Yeah. Like Eden's report card was out there earlier today, and he's like, "Oh, Eden's report card."
I never looked at it. I was just joking. I want to get a response from you.
If I have bills out there, he'll check to see how much I'm paying in hydro.
Really? That's funny.
I don't actually. I just make you upset by doing that. Anyway, so we have a little game here.
Yeah.
Because you do, I think, like shoes. So we have a game that is called, Greg,
the shoe game.
Okay.
The game where you pick.
Now, do you profess to be a very well versed person in the shoe industry?
No.
Okay. Well, then.
If I was still if I was still in youth, I went through a phase where I'm like, okay, I'm a 28-year-old youth pastor.
A year ago.
Yes. That's
long ago in olden days.
And that's how much my life has changed, right? Yeah. So the year that I would say 2000, what year was that? Maybe 2022. So I became senior pastor in 2023, October.
Yep.
2022, I was still youth pastor, and through 2023. But obviously 2023, I started speaking on stage more because my dad passed. Yeah. And so we were kind of sharing that whole thing. And so I started buying a lot of shoes because I was just like, oh, I got to invest in some shoes so I can stay somewhat young with these teens. Yep. It's a lie. Don't ever do that. Whoever is listening, you will never relate to them more because you're in a pair of Jordans. Like, don't worry about that. If you like them, buy them. If you don't, who cares? And so I bought just like, I think I have like, it was a year where I just like, I put all of my spending money the entire year towards like these stupid shoes. And I was like, oh, I wear them every once in a while. So I have Yeezys and I have like a couple pairs of Air Jordan highs and like,
you got your dad into some shoes too back in the day,
I did.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember seeing some shoes on your dad. I'm like, I think Zach's been shopping for him.
Yeah. Yep.
So those weren't for you. They were from somebody else. You were shopping for somebody else.
Which ones? Oh, when you were shopping? Yeah.
You're probably getting Eden a new pair of shoes or something, right?
What do you remember the year?
It would have been a year and a half ago.
Yeah,
about a year and a half.
Who is preaching on stage?
I want to say David.
Okay.
So that makes sense why you'd be.
Yeah, I wasn't paying attention. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just joking.
Shut up, David.
I'm just joking. Yeah. No.
Share.
Okay, so the game is fairly simple. We're going to show you a shoe on the screen.
Okay.
And you just have to name it, and I'll tell you if you're right or wrong.
How specific am I getting with the names?
So not just brand. You can't just say
course,
Nike,
yeah.
Adidas, Reebok. You just have to say the name and the model.
Okay, I'm not gonna know a lot of these,
And not you don't have to know the year or like Off-White, not off. You know what I
Okay.
mean?
Well, Off-White's the easiest thing to notice because it has a big tag on it. But yeah,
Okay, we'll see.
unless you rip the tag off. Okay,
So now we've gone through. We got Jess to go through all of Zach's shoes. These are all photo. No, just
yeah,
kidding.
exactly. Yeah, I was like, oh, you use
Okay, let's see the first one here.
Oh, I don't know the model. It's the dad shoe. That's what it's called.
It
It's
is the
called
dad shoe.
Is it? It's just the New Balance dad shoe. Everyone
New
says I'm gonna inherently have one of these the second I become a dad, and they're gonna be grass stained. So it's just how it works.
We have the
They're the New Balance.
We have the clapping.
Well, he knew they were New Balance because they say
We have the
they're the
Cancher.
608.
You got it right.
608s.
You got it
So
right.
this shoe has been around for years. I used to work at a place called Sport Mart,
Yeah.
and we sold this shoe, and every year it would come in the exact same shoe. It would be like 2006, 2007, like it's
Nothing
the exact
changed.
same shoe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are they comfy?
Maybe they changed the N on
They gotta
it.
be.
They're super comfortable.
Yeah.
There's another
Dad's-
shoe called the Nike Air Monarch, which competed well with it.
Yeah.
You get one of those too. So I think that for your 30th birthday, this would be a good idea for Tim to go shopping for you. So we just need the two
How much
size.
do these things cost?
They're like 79, 89 bucks.
Okay.
So if there's ever a
You get
guy,
them on sale for like 59.
yeah, if there's ever a guy in church looking at shoes, I'm looking at presents for you.
Yeah.
Okay, next one. This one's tougher.
Oh man, I've seen those before.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Do we have music going on for a game show in the background while he's That's Jeopardy. We can't use that trademark.
Okay, sorry. Copyrighted.
Yeah.
We just lost all the audio for this podcast.
File not found.
I don't know. I don't know the name. I want to know. I want to say I know it, but like,
Just guess.
if I were to guess what that is, I'd probably guess. I mean, it looks like a Sketcher, but I know it's not a Sketcher.
No. So it's a very popular Instagram shoe right now. It's called Vessi.
Oh yes, yes,
And they're waterproof.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so it's a
yeah.
Vessi.
Shout out to Vessi. Yeah.
See if they'll sponsor us.
Like, share, subscribe.
Click the link below.
Yeah.
Get your own.
Yeah.
Okay, next
Oh,
one.
man.
They get easier.
Yeah, that's Air Force One, but I don't know the exact type.
No,
No.
this is the Travis Scott.
Okay.
Very popular.
I used to
last
want
year.
the Travis Scott, the reverse mochas.
Yeah, and they had
Jordan
the,
Lows,
the
those-
logo
oh, yeah.
going the wrong way
Yeah.
on it.
I probably still want those, but when I saw them, they were like, I think they're 1,600 now
Oh,
or something crazy like that. So I'm like, yeah, no.
you had to
I'm
get
kidding.
in on the
Yeah.
the early.
Yeah.
Okay, next one. They get easier.
Oh, that's Air Max. What is it? I wanted a pair of. Oh, and those are 97s.
You went one number too much.
Okay, 98. Oh,
Ni-
sick.
90. Just 90.
90s. You
Yeah.
said one number too much.
Yeah, you said 97.
Oh,
If you
okay.
just stopped at 90.
90s, right.
These were actually worn on stage a couple weeks ago, so that's why.
That's close. I think that's close enough.
not by yourself. But
Yeah,
one of
Roman.
the worship. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
I actually met.
Those are off whites.
These are off whites. As well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Usually the off white has the plastics tag on
I
them.
know.
I usually leave them. But,
I know.
Yeah.
I made sure it wasn't on there for you.
Oh yeah. I would have got that in a heartbeat. At least the off white collab. That's
Yeah.
But yeah. Oh my gosh. Was it Asics or something like that?
They're Asics, yeah. They're called the Asics Kayano. You see, as you get older here, Zach, you're gonna have to learn these kinds of shoes.
I don't need to learn
right?
anything.
To be more comfortable.
Yeah.
These are a running shoe. These would be perfect for Tim in his runs. You wear
I
Asics?
like Asics.
Yeah. Okay. And I think there might be one or two more left here. This one.
I don't know. I don't know the specific Jordan 1 low, but it's a Jordan 1 low. I just don't know what. It's a dunk.
You're right.
Yeah.
I tried to trick you on that one.
Yeah. So, but I don't know. Bumblebee or something is probably what they call it these days.
I just have it down as Nike Dunk, but I
Okay.
wanted to
Yeah,
trick
yeah.
you on it.
Yeah.
And then the last one I think is this one here.
Yeah, that's a Jordan 1 low. I have those, but no, I don't have those ones. But yes, that's a Jordan 1 low. Obviously,
Yeah.
I don't know what the name is though. I have ones that are maroon but silver with the stripe.
Okay.
Or
I think
with
the only
check
difference
mark.
between these and the Dunks, other than the Dunks are air as well, right?
I don't know.
I think it's just where the swoosh doesn't get cut on
Right.
the low on
Yeah.
the Jordans, where the swoosh gets cut.
I like
on the-
Jordan 1 lows better than
So if
Dunks.
you go back to the
but
Dunks, see the swoosh. There's another line that goes through the swoosh, whereas the swoosh has its own.
unpopular opinion, but Dunks look cheaper than Jordan 1 lows to me. They look like a more like high volume type of shoe that isn't as nice as the Jordan 1 low is what I think.
Yeah.
Personally. But that's why I like the Jordan 1 low. I have one pair of Dunks, but they're highs.
Okay.
Yeah, but I don't have any lows. I have Jordan 1 low.
Favorite pair of
Jordan 1
shoes
high.
that you own right now?
Oh, favorite. It's so is can you like categorize at least for like what I use it for? Or is it just
That you wear on
overall
stage?
my favorite stage shoes are almost always super uncomfortable. That's the only thing that
Are
sucks. But I'm really into the Goodman brand right now. Like I really like those. They have just this low sneakers.
Okay.
I like those a lot. And those are kind of comfier than typical ones too. But that's typically what I'm wearing on stage. If I'm wearing like a low dressier sneaker, it's almost always the Goodman brand.
Yeah. Have you tried on running?
No.
No. The last picture, there was one more after that. On running makes this really casual shoe. Right there.
Oh, is that what they call it? On running? That's
Yeah.
what they call it? Why did I hear other ones like, I don't remember what the other, a lot of people are wearing those types of sneakers now. Like they're really big now. You see them everywhere.
It's called the Roger. Roger Federer had the collaboration with these ones.
Yeah.
Apparently they're like walking like barefoot, but with like a cushion, like a very soft cushion. But it's
Interesting.
something you could actually probably pull off on stage as a more dressier style shoe.
Is it an easy shoe to get?
Yeah, you can get them at any of the higher end running shoe places.
Okay.
So I think like Running Room would probably have it.
Even I walked past Browns and Browns has a massive, is that what it's called? On running?
Yep.
I don't know what another name that I thought it was like some kind of cloud. I don't remember what it was
It's the
called.
Cloud.
Okay.
They have the Cloud shoe.
Right. So then maybe I saw the Cloud and I was like, oh, it's the Cloud, but on running. So
The
that
Cloud shoe kind of has like a bigger sole to it. Like it has like these like it looks different, right?
right.
This one's more of a casual, and it comes in like all different colors: green and white, white and blue, black and white, all white.
I always try to find like things that aren't mainstream
Yeah,
and not too expensive because I'm just like, these shoes, like they degrade so quickly. When I was like, again, more of a youth pastor, I was like, oh, it's only the expensive shoes that's going to give me some kind of, I don't know, head start with all these teens. It's like, I think it's because I walked in with like an old pair of shoes and I just got like roasted on a Friday night for
Andre?
youth. Not by Andre, no. No.
So you started the segment like I don't really know much about shoes, and then by the end of the segment, you were talking like an expert,
Well, that's what I mean. A
He's an
sneakerhead,
expert.
I'm not a sneakerhead.
right?
The craziest story is that I used to go into sneaker raffles where you, for some of these more, I don't know, rare models, you have to enter into them and then you might get pulled to buy them for retail, right? So a Dunk or a Jordan 1, if you get them when they come out, $120, $150, $150 maybe.
Yeah.
So it's affordable considering most shoes are like that now, unless you're buying them at Winners or one of those types of places. And so I entered in for what was called the Jordan 1. I think it was the Lost and Founds. So they're like the one colorway that came out that was kind of copying the Michael Jordan like original 87s or whatever it was that are like the typical Jordan 1 highs, like the famous ones. And so I went to Foot Locker at the mall here, gave my number, my size, and they called me on the day of release to tell me that I won them. So I got a missed call from Foot Locker, called them back, and then like, oh, we were just calling you to tell you that you won the raffle, so you can buy the Lost and Founds. And I was like super stoked, right? And I was like, but you didn't pick up, so we already gave them to someone else. And I was like, what? And like, yeah. So I was like, can I talk to the manager? And they're like, yeah. And like, sorry, the other guy's already on his way to pick it up. I'm like, you guys didn't even leave me a voicemail, nothing.
Yeah.
Like, you gave me no time to even call back. So I'm just supposed to be on my phone like at all times and not miss this. It was just kind of funny. Which is funny because I'm the type of person that will wear the sneakers and beat them. Like I don't care. I'm not going to keep them.
Whereas this person's probably reselling.
Probably. Yeah.
Yeah.
And my favorite thing at youth to do was to show people I have no problem creasing my shoes. And I would just go on my tippy toes and just over and over again crease them right in
drives
that
the
one
kids
spot.
crazy.
Oh yeah. They were just like so mad at me all the time. It was hilarious. But that was one thing I missed out on that was not too fun.
Speaking of shoes, and the shoe segment has gone on way too long.
Tim's not-
I know
Tim's
nothing
not a
about
shoe
shoes.
guy
I'm
at
like,
all.
I knew that was a Nike swoosh.
Yeah.
But Greg was it last year? You went to Social Dallas,
Right.
Robert Madu's church. I think you hung out with him for a bit.
Yep.
And the week before you went there, he was giving
No,
away.
so it was we went in March of last year. So in March he was talking about not being about possessions and all that kind of stuff. So it was like week after week where he would like do giveaways and blessing the people in his church. And then the next week he did his shoes.
He must have had like a trunk full of, it must have been
It
30,
was all
40
Jordans.
Air Jordans that he had that he gave to
They were
the
his personal
guys.
shoes?
He said they
That's
were
what
his
he says,
personal
yeah.
shoes.
And he's like, I'm not about like having these Jordans anymore. Like I can have a pair or two pairs, but I don't need 45 pairs of Jordans anymore, right? So he gave them away to guys. Like if you were a size
They
13,
all lined
and
up. There must have
you
been 40
can come
guys
up and
lining
you can
for
come
his
get shoes.
His Nikes, just Air Nikes.
So
His collection.
every week leading up to that, he was giving stuff away. And then I went
and nothing.
Yeah.
they gave nothing away.
Yeah.
And it was their it was talking about tithing.
Yep.
So like he was leading up to the giving portion, like it was his message was really leading up to giving. And at the end, like his giving message was really, really good. I think Tim, you watched it recently again. He was talking about like how you give a certain amount of something after you pay all your bills, or if you give away first and then pay all your bills, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he would be like, he took this like thing of cheese and he's like, well, okay, I got my bills for this, I got my bills for this, I got my bills for this, I spent this out here, I spent this out here, and then all of a sudden he has this like little like piece of cheese and he's like, okay, that's what I got to give to the church, right? And then whereas then he goes, but I have this other piece of cheese and I give my amount to church, now I only have to work with this amount, right? And it was he did it with cheese, like a couple different things, and then he brought in this giant pizza that was like he's very similar to like Pastor Phil, where he brings in these props that are like over the top, right?
Yeah.
So this giant pizza that took over this whole, and he's like, okay, so I don't need this whole pizza.
Yeah.
But if I eat the pizza first and I give away all that's just left, I won't give anything anymore, right? So, and he's like, I give away this big piece because I know I don't need this whole thing. And then it was a really cool demonstration with that. But that was my message the week before. He's giving away Jordan.
So he's leading up to it, and it was a whole thing leading up to it. So he's like, what am I going to get? What am I going to get? Nothing.
Yeah. That's funny.
So
do you watch Social Dallas at all? Do you watch other pastors?
Not much.
No,
I'm not. That's the hard part. I think people are they're a little mind boggled when I say that, but I don't. I sometimes I do, but it's hard to know what and when and where and which one and I don't know. For me, I don't listen to a whole lot of them. A lot of clips, obviously, and if I get a clip where I'm like, oh, this looks really good, I want to listen to the whole message. I'll try sometimes, but
while you're painting, something in your ear.
I will, but even when I'm like doing stuff like that at home, it's like typically I listen to something that is more about life, I guess, not
like focus teaching.
Yeah, not even. I'm not like it's my profession, so sometimes I get some time to myself, and the last thing I want to do is listen to another like teaching podcast about God's word, right? Because I'm in it all the time. I am constantly researching and looking and finding
but there's getting into the word, and there is how you explain it, public speaking, quirks in which other pastors kind of deliver things. I mean, I would imagine, and I'm wrong, obviously, but that someone might say, I'm going to listen to these guys just because of how they speak, and I can learn from that, even if it's not like how I need to present the Holy Spirit or stuff like that.
And that's what most pastors will probably tell you. You have to try very hard to not make it work when you're watching or listening to something that you do. just like go, like if you're a teacher and you start watching people and how they teach, it's like, it's very sometimes, or a presenter, right? You're like, you'll probably focus on more how they present with the knowledge rather than the knowledge itself.
Right.
Even if you don't have the knowledge, sometimes you're like, oh, that's cool that he tied that point in there, or that story right there. It's cool that he gave that away there and tied that to the point.
Yeah.
My mind would automatically go on to the how more than the what.
Right.
For me. It's like, how did he display this message or she display this message, to learn from it? Like I said, I'm all about like self-learning. That's usually what I am. So when I listen to something, it's usually I want to listen to like just a conversation. I'd further listen to let's
The
pick
Greg
on
and Tim show.
yeah. Let's further pick on Robert Madu. It's like I'd probably rather listen to Robert on a podcast.
Right.
Where he's just chatting,
Yeah.
rather than a preaching.
Like get to know him as a person type.
Yeah,
of thing.
or like you just, it's just that I relate to this better.
Yeah.
You don't have to be showy, you don't have to be performing. There's a performance aspect to speaking on stage that you will have no matter what.
Yeah.
Not in a bad performance way, but it's because you care about it. You want to make sure you do it best. So
you want to present it in the best way possible.
So I have certain teachers or pastors that I listen to if I want to get more on certain subjects, and there's people out there that are great, like that you just like listening to because they are very good at displaying a certain message
Right.
or a certain topic. I'll listen to them, but I like weekly. I probably don't listen to a whole lot. It might be every once in a while that I'll throw on a pastor while I'm driving, or but yeah, not much.
Okay.
Yeah.
So going to read you a few comments from people. We have
What?
we have tunnels.
I don't know about this
We
segment.
have
so-
tunnels that go under the ground from the
these
Mint
comments.
under the highway to Springs.
Yeah.
You drive a $200,000 vehicle.
Yep.
You need to pay to come to any service that we have. There is a private helicopter that the church gives to you that you can go home and to church with.
Nice.
Are these true? And do you laugh at some of these things? You just laugh it off. Does it bother you?
Doesn't bother me one bit.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't bother me one bit. Obviously they're not true.
And
it's obvious
you'd like
on
to
this one, but-
disprove those things. I thought maybe one of them you'd be like, yeah, Tim, breaking
tunnels,
news.
right?
We have
Yeah.
tunnels
To the
that
Mint.
actually is
Yeah.
what? Breaking news.
Yeah. No, I mean, the funny thing is most of those rumors always come from someone that's never came into our building. Obviously, they're so crazy that you're just
Yeah.
like, okay, this is kind of funny, but that's just life. I mean,
I've heard a lot of people tell me, like when I invite them to church and I say, would you like to come to church to Springs? They'll tell me, like, I don't know if I can afford to go there.
Totally.
I don't know.
We actually had a
Like-
guest. We said, hey, you should come to our church. So Greg had invited her, and she literally said, I would like to, but I can't afford it.
and you guys hopefully disproved that.
Oh, yeah.
On the spot?
100%.
Okay, good.
I said it's free. The only thing you need to bring in is your T4.
yeah.
Which is the other rumor, right? No, I said, like it's just like going to any other church.
Yep.
You go in, you enjoy the service, you enjoy the worship, you get to meet a lot of cool people because like the one of the things you guys say at the beginning when you tell everybody, say hi to somebody you don't know, there is a lot of cool people that go to our church, right? That you don't even know that go to our church. I just said, like, come experience it, see what you, and I actually sent her the Father's Day clip that you did because I thought it was a very good representation of the men in the church while also still being respectful to the women in the church, right? In the same message, right? Because there's one thing to be rah men, but you also have to remember 50% of the congregation there is
Probably 60, but yeah.
is women, right? And women don't want to get turned off by the message, right?
No.
So I actually shared that when I said, hey, this one was a Father's Day message, but I think it's great for even women to listen to.
Yeah.
Well, and I think every wife or aspiring wife is totally game to hear what the biblical kind of version of a man should be, because it benefits the marriage to the degree that you have no clue if you're in a side of the marriage. Like if some people, they've just had traumatic upbringings, they've had things in their life that like it hurt and they're traumatized, and I never want to demean that at all, but also want to say just because you were treated wrongly by a father or by a husband doesn't mean that what the Bible talks about as what a biblical man looks like is him, right? Because there's a prerequisite with with being a godly man of being someone who submits to Jesus, right? And if you don't submit to Jesus, then you're not worthy of being a man to be submitted to by your wife or by your kids. It's like, where are you going to lead them? Well, it's going to be all out of selfish ambition and for your own gain to a certain degree.
Yeah.
And so that's the hard part. But I think most women are totally cool with amping up the men that way, because I'm probably going to be hard hitting towards the guys in the way you need to act. I'd probably put off more men in that service if you were hurt by something like that than I would the women, because the women are okay with hearing how amazing men are.
Yeah.
I just like to always put it in there in a way that's not. And I did that entire message, right? It was just like, women, I'm not. This is Father's Day, so just sit back and relax and listen to all what God made men for, right?
Yeah.
We've talked to a few guests about kind of the roles, like, are there defined roles for a man, for a woman? And there's been a lot of pushback over the last decade over no defined roles. But we've talked to a few guests where it's almost as though, I don't know if you disagree or agree with this, but since pandemic, it seems to be there's a shift coming back to kind of these roots. And we've talked to some people that would be on the opposite side, where they're saying, yes, there are traditional roles for men, there are traditional roles for a woman. Do you find that, again, since the COVID pandemic days, that people are starting to come back to some of these traditional, maybe come back to church, come back to traditional roles, maybe getting back to the roots? Do you see that too?
Yeah, I think so. It's hard since the pandemic because of that. You have a lot of people that push certain ideologies with whatever it is they believe in, but it's usually because of hurt they experienced.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's tough subjects to talk about anything these days, because typically a victim who hasn't dealt with the traumatic experience they've had can slip into victimhood, which means, in my definition, this is probably not the real definition of it, but it just means it doesn't matter. Like, you could have the greatest child upbringing and still be a victim. Yeah. And someone who's actually a victim to something might look at you and go, that's the easiest childhood I've ever heard of in my life. But somehow you're still pulling that up. So that's the hard part when we talk about biblical and traditional is one thing, but I like to use the word, like, the biblical model of a family and a husband and a wife, because I do believe that God's created each and every one of us as man and woman, and has put inherent characteristics in the woman to support the family really well, and has put inherent qualities and characteristics in the man to support the family really well. And when you find that and cheer each other on, it's phenomenal, right? Now, the 1% on every single discussion you have on any podcast, anywhere, they're all going to push, well, I'm a single mom, and what you said is you need a man. I'm like, I'm not saying you need a man. I am saying your family will, in my opinion, biblically turn out the way God is intended to, and probably in an easier way when you have a man that's strong and knows who he is in Christ. But we see single moms everywhere that do a fantastic job of mothering, and they're heroes to me. But at the same time, we live in a, and this is probably not popular opinion and might get ripped apart, but that's fine. But we live in a society where kids are typically overmothered and underfathered, right? If a man is in the home and brings in that strong disciplinary type of fatherhood, you gain respect as a man, and you teach respect to the boy or girl, right? Whereas the mother, man, they are the most genuine and loving and nurturing types of people, the best teachers, the best everything. Why? Because when it goes down to the nurturing aspect of them, that's just inherent within them, right? So it's like, I am loving in my own way. When it comes to nurturing, my wife outdoes me every single day of my life, no matter what, right? Yeah. No matter. That's just how it works. Why? Because it's an inherent quality that we see in the Bible that is with that. And so I could have a conversation with any woman, I believe, and define the actual biblical version of a man. And I bet you by the end of the conversation, they would agree with me in saying, I would submit to that, because their definition of submission is probably more based upon experience within her, that with a very selfish, self-centered man that's all about his own. I want to be big and manly and do what I want to do. That's not what it actually is, right? So it's different. We can go on a whole tangent within that conversation, but we
talked a little bit about alpha.
I'm fine with whatever, but
we talked a little bit of like alpha males and like toxic masculinity and that type of thing. And there's a video that we shared a couple weeks ago about a guy named Adam Ruins Everything that talks that there's no such thing as an alpha male, which I kind of disagree with him, because I look at an alpha male as somebody who's more so like somebody who can lead and take charge and be their family's like provider and that type of thing. Like that's how I look as an alpha, as opposed to the I feel like they're trying to make everybody a beta. Like everybody, so Tim, you have to be the same as your wife. Your wife has to be the same as you. You guys have to work the same levels, like all that kind of stuff, right? Whereas back in the day when our parents were kids, or even before that when our grandparents were kids, they grew up with like, I got to go out and provide for my family as the alpha, and my wife's going to provide the nurturing for my family, which is you could say it's a beta thing, but I look at it more as being like alpha female, like a strong female who's okay with taking care of the kids or okay with taking care of the house and not having to go out and do something else.
The feminist movement is interesting because I opened a door for a girl one time and she said, I can do that myself. She said straight to my face. I'm like, and I said back, I said, I know you can do it yourself. That's why I'm doing it, because I know you can do this. And I'm like, I'll just open the door for her.
Yeah.
It's not because I don't think that that. And that instantly just shared with me, there was some type of hurt from some guy who made her feel of less of a woman, right? A real biblical man makes and supports and lifts up the woman in his life and champions her and has her back and protects her and provides for her. And the hard part is in the world that we live in right now is it's getting easier. And in a comparison to back in the day where you had to be a protector, and I mean a protector, someone could walk into your house and take your land, and way back in the day, right? And now we don't have that because we have a lot more government, and that changes how men have grown up in this society, so they aren't that respected because the wife or the woman in their lives don't have to rely on him. Like they can go get their own job, they can raise their own kids, and they can. We see it all the time. We see more single moms probably than ever before if we look at the stats. And they raise their kids, and their kids are amazing very often. But there's always going to be something missing within any kid, whether raised by a single dad or a mom, because there's inherent characteristics that kid grew up with not having because of that. That's just how it is. And as an adult, you have to either figure out what that is or marry someone and really rely on them to explain what that normal childhood looks like, to have a loving mom and a loving dad. But people take it as a hit against their own character when you say, well, it's just tough because maybe you were raised in a single parent home and that means that there's probably some things you still need to learn. That's nothing against your parents. No. It sucks if you were abused by your dad and your dad was not someone that you want to look up to ever. But now that we're adults, we have to figure out a way to pivot and figure out how we can find that still. Yeah. And that to me is always Jesus. Jesus was the ultimate man. Yeah. But you have a lot of people that have their own ways of looking at things sometimes and through the lens of their hurt.
Your dad, I remember the one message that stuck out the most to me was his blueprint message. And he talked about a blueprint. There's something deep inside of your subconscious that you don't realize. You could be going through your teen years, dating, but until a certain scenario hits, that blueprint doesn't come out to the surface. It's always boiling underneath the surface. And that always stuck with me because, like you're saying, I was a single parent child, only child, no visible dad. Mm-hmm. And that really stuck with me because, when you get into marriage, having kids, there seems to be this growth curve. And I said before, it takes me forever to get something, and then I perfect it. Well, the same thing can be applied. Whereas someone has a great father, great mother, you tend to and that they're not always perfect, but you tend to snap into that role as soon as it happens because you've learned, right? Mm-hmm.
And so, you have only child tendencies. Yeah. Which...
Yeah, Greg has to deal with
anybody that's not an only child doesn't understand only child tendencies.
Yeah, I would believe that. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so and I heard somebody say that and like I say, trying to go from one generation to the next. We talked to the Sandersons, Nelson Sanderson, about he had to break a cycle. And how hard was that? How hard is it when all you know is one thing? Mm. To create something different? How easy it is when all you know is one thing and to do exactly what you've been told. Yep. And somebody had told me, you know what, if you come in as a 2 in that area and you leave as a 5, you've grown 3. Mm-hmm. If you come in as a 9 and you leave as a 7, you've lost two. Even though those two numbers are one is higher than the other ones, it's about growing that next generation,
Mhm.
which really stuck with me.
Totally. I think that's the aspect that can be difficult within that is that I've heard a lot of stories with people who've had messed up childhoods, and that was, and I said this in my Father's Day message, and that was the breaking point of them saying, I've been taught a lot, but a lot of what I've been taught is what I will never do to my kids, right? And
Yeah.
it takes a very strong man to go, I was abused, I was this, I was that, and I will never do that to my kids because I hated it so much, right? And that's where you start to see a big change. I can line up two people in front of you right now, the same types of abusive past, I mean, identically, and I can show you one person that has risen above it and has an amazing family, amazing marriage, and I can show you one that's down and out and in a spiraling depression, addicted to alcohol and drugs. And it's the same type of hurt.
Yeah.
Same severity of hurt. And that just shows you that it's hard. And I came from a good family. But just because I came from a good family doesn't mean I can't speak to that. You know what I mean? I might not be able to understand the intricacies of the hurt in the sense of me feeling it, but to not allow anyone to speak to anything because you've never been there. I mean, well, then what is truth anymore, right? That's why I always go back to the Bible. It's like, well, what does the Bible say about this? Well, I believe anyone can fix themselves from their old past hurt, right, and be totally good. But it takes work, right? And I'm sure you are a walking example of that, where it's like the way that you just explain that you were raised. It's like that probably did bring up, how am I going to parent my kids? What I want to be. I don't want to be a dad that's non-existent and not there. I want to be there for my girls, right?
Yeah.
And I think it pushes you one of two ways. And so, and back to the man and woman comment back in the day, or sorry, back 10 minutes ago when we were talking about life doesn't make the wife see the characteristics of the man very much anymore, right? You need to be protective, but very few times does your wife get to see that protection in action.
Mhm.
They hear you talk about it, imagine it, tell stories about it. But if we are in the day and age where you guys are plowing your fields and a pack of wolves comes up, whatever it is back in the day, and the man is there and protects the entire family, that would be an action where the wife goes, oh my goodness. To that aspect, I will submit to you always. Thank you so much for protecting my family. Whereas in today's day, you don't have those things anymore.
It's not the same.
Right? It's just not the same. Even though those characteristics are still in the man, it's not brought up as much through the way that we live. Just like being a provider. Back in the day, there was no other way of doing it. The man had to go do the hard work and figure it out. And he'd be gone for months on end, way back in the day, 1600s, to get what he needed to get done so he could provide for his homestead and his family. You don't get that anymore. You can go make a paycheck on YouTube and do nothing all day and just be an entertainer. And there's a difference within that. And so you have the side where it weakens the man, but also makes the woman not inherently respect men, because you don't get to observe the man in the God-given characteristics that have been given to him. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Is this generation too soft? Are we raising kids that are too cushy?
I mean, it's a hard question, because I've met some families that aren't at all, but I've met a lot of families that are, right? But usually, I mean, I wasn't in the last generation, so you guys would probably be able to answer that question a lot more than I could. But
Is Greg raising children that are too cushy?
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I want to go into a whole different topic here. I've had this idea in my head for a little while, and I've been meaning to talk to you about it.
Okay.
So I figured, since I've got you in the room, I'm
On
just gonna
camera,
give you
recording.
the idea,
Yeah.
recorded.
Yeah.
It's nothing you have to do or anything like that.
Okay.
So in my idea in my head, so just to give some context, you work with Miracle Channel, Springs Church and Miracle Channel. Kind of, they're not the same company, but they do work hand in hand with each other to help promote different things. And
I don't work for Miracle Channel.
No.
Like, I don't get a paycheck for Miracle Channel. But anything I can assist with when it comes to TV. I mean, you're on when you're preaching. There's a lot of things with a Christian network that just coexists together.
Yeah,
So,
and you've
but
been
we're
on
two
the
separate
show.
organizations.
Five in the Wild was
Yeah.
a show that you were
Yeah.
on and everything. So I have an idea for a show for you.
Okay.
So you're gonna have to bring this to your brother-in-law and
Okay.
pitch this to him if you really like it.
Okay.
I call it Zach Does
With the Z.
with a Z.
No, I just want it with a Z. I don't know. Sorry.
Zach does with a Z, like a
Does.
Z on.
Does.
Okay,
Oh,
whatever.
DOEZ.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
and then the two Z's are capitalized.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
he's
okay.
picturing the logo already.
I got it.
Yeah.
So Zach does, and you go, and it's going to be tough right now because you're going to have a small child for a little bit. But once that kind of like stage ends here, you go and you do something for like a week. So whether it be like live with Wim Hof or live a life of David Goggins or just taking on a certain challenge, like, you know, I'm going to do this. So the reason why I have this idea in my head is there's a show called Limitless, and it's not the Limitless of the movie, but a Limitless, the TV show that one of the Hemsworth brothers was on. And he would spend like a whole month trying to perfect these different things that would make him better in life, right? And the reason why I suggest this for you is because I think it would be really cool to see you at your age, because you're still younger, learning from all of these different experiences real time. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So like you going and living with Wim Hof and doing the cold and like embracing the suck, essentially, is what he says, right?
Mhm.
And then learning from that and then coming back with like a different perspective on the way you live your life versus the way he lives his life.
Mhm.
That type of thing.
It's cool.
So
It's cool.
I think it would be a very cool
It would
show.
be cool. It'd be a very cool show. Yeah. Pitching that to Jeremy would be a fun one.
Zach does.
Do you think he'll go with it? I don't know.
I think so.
Yeah.
Well, because Jeremy doesn't have to do it.
That
Yeah,
was,
it's true.
That was
Right, 'cause
Jeremy would want
warm
to, though,
response.
probably.
Yeah,
Jeremy
he's
would
just going to
want to?
steal it.
Yeah.
That's
think
a
he'll
great
steal your
idea. I
idea?
don't think it's going to work next week. I have this idea called Jeremy Does.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Ca-
that was my
Capital J and capital Z
idea.
doesn't work, though.
No.
You know? So.
But even like swimming with sharks or
Yeah.
like bungee jumping. Like I know that
He
you're
just
an
wants to
adventurous
see you
person.
bungee jump, run a marathon, swim with sharks.
No, I think there's so many life like challenges in life that people overcome, right? And people like to see positive things, right? So
Totally, yeah.
like as opposed to having all the regular secular television where it's like a lot of negative stuff, this is more of a like this is something you're over, like say you have a fear of sharks,
Mhm.
you go swimming with the sharks and we get to see you overcoming that with like, you know, teaching and with learning and all that kind of stuff, right?
Yep.
I think it'd be a very cool experience, not just for you but for the people that are watching it too. And plus it'll give you so many stories for the stage.
It's true. It would give me a lot of stories. That's the beauty of that for sure.
Right?
Mhm.
Some of your dad's best stories were from when he was experiencing things outside of church.
Oh, that's where all your stories come from. You
No, but
typically,
just like-
but yeah,
Like when he talks about like the Hell's Angels story,
Mhm.
or he talks about like working
yeah.
as a paramedic,
Mhm.
or
My favorite story is when that person that just got saved started shouting profanities because he hadn't had never he told that story. That's
yeah.
my favorite story.
Yeah.
yeah.
yeah,
But like those are
Yeah.
the best stories, right? Like
Yeah.
real life experiences that your dad had
Mhm.
throughout that.
Getting
So-
quarter pounders and
and getting
fries and a milkshake.
Totally.
Is he going to eat that when he gets back? I think so.
yeah.
Um,
and then so I'm gonna
he's
cut you
gonna
off
mull it
again.
over.
He's gonna mull it over. I'm gonna cut you off one more time. The second question I have while I've got you in the room here is I want your opinion on church merch. And I want your opinion on why yes or why no. And just kind of, you know, pick your brain on that because we go to churches when we travel. Like that's one of the things that me and Tim will 100% do. We'll take a trip, but we'll always find a new church to go to check out, just to experience what they're experiencing and hear a message that they're hearing. But a lot of times now we see merch
Mhm.
in churches these days, right? What is your stance on church merch?
Neutral. I am not against it, and I'm not. Well, I mean, for it. Obviously, merch is great. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it can be overdone in a lot of churches where you're like, okay, like just chill out, like have
Yeah.
something cool and go do it. But I enjoy it. I do like it. It's just, yeah, you have to pick what you love, and it's like the starter pack for a lot of churches now, right? To just get your typical
Black t-shirt.
whatever it is, right? The starter pack of starting a new church in today's day by a young pastor has like, it's almost like you get a collection of things, whether it's merch and signs and all these different things. And so,
Coffee.
yeah, and I don't want to I don't know. Merch is great. I think we're definitely in the works of figuring that kind of stuff out. That's why when I was a youth pastor, we did youth merch, right? So that should show that I am totally game to do it. But it's always the what, right? Everyone has different ideas, and everyone's ideas are very, very, very drastically different as to what people like and what people don't like. So
I like coffee cups.
coffee cups.
Yeah, a lot of churches will, for new people, have a coffee cup with the label or of the church.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
That's my
there's a
favorite.
couple of those.
Anyway,
And I gotta change the I don't know. We're maybe in the process of changing some like of our logos and stuff too. So you don't want to put a bunch of merch out with something
the old
that, you know,
logo and everything like that on it, and
Got to figure out.
and plus they
figure
have
a
to
way.
have the Greg and Tim show on the other side, right?
if it's brought to you by
I guess
the
that
Greg
way.
and Tim show, but I don't think we have that
Yeah.
budget.
Yeah.
But
Can we have a couple more questions
yeah, go ahead.
upcoming, but can we do the this is where that came? Can we do
You
that
wanna
now?
This or that?
Can we do that?
Because we're running out of time with Zach here, so we'll
Let's
do
quickly
this or
do
that.
Yes. Can we do a game with you? A second game?
Sure.
It's a
Okay,
second game.
we do this game with everybody, so we can't not do it.
We have to do this game.
Yeah, so it's a this or that is exactly how it sounds. You have to pick one thing or the other. When you pick one thing, the other one doesn't exist to you, and you cannot pass. You cannot say tie. You have to pick one. These are the rules. Did I explain it properly?
Yeah. One
Time limit?
disappears. There's no time limit.
You
If
can
you want to explain,
Expound
you
on something you
explain.
can. You don't have
It's
to.
not
You
a
can move
lightning
on.
round or anything like that. You just have to pick one or the other. And if you think that you want, you're like,
Oh,
oh, I
flip
want
it.
to expand on why I picked that. Feel free.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Instagram or TikTok?
Oh, Instagram,
Nike or Yeezy?
Nike, probably
Nike.
now. Yeah.
Rom-com or sci-fi?
Ooh. Probably me, sci-fi.
Okay.
Yeah.
A lot of guys actually pick rom-coms, including me.
I like rom-coms.
Yeah.
And if my wife was there, I'd probably be picking rom-coms all night
There
long.
you go.
You know,
Yeah.
So,
Pizza or pasta?
oh, pizza.
Most people do. Painting your kitchen or running a marathon?
Probably running a marathon because of the, I would say,
It is 26.1 miles, by the way.
I know. Oh, I'd
Okay.
train for it, right?
Okay.
But I feel like the accomplishment of running a marathon
Yeah.
far outweighs painting your kitchen. That's why I would do it.
You want
And the
to-
experience.
Do you want to train for next year? I'll run with you.
I don't know.
This is like the $1 million thing. When it's in hypothetical, no. Yeah, then
I would do it. I just
Yeah.
I think about having the time to do that and
Right.
to train for it. And I have to just the priorities, right? I
Zach
got to
does.
figure out
Just
what.
keep-
Zach does a marathon.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Just for coffee alone, Tim's, Starbucks, or McDonald's?
Tim's.
Yeah, that's right. It's not correct. It's McDonald's.
Yeah.
Elevation Worship or Hillsong?
Now elevation. Yeah.
Video games or Netflix?
Oh man. If you would have asked me 3 years ago, I'd say video games 100%. But now it's probably definitely Netflix. Yeah. I'm not a gamer much anymore. Weirdly enough.
Well, you're transitioning.
You're not playing Call of Duty on the headset.
I used to. Yeah, I loved it. It was my way of. But then with gaming, it came to the point where how do I feel when I'm done gaming?
Right.
Yeah.
And almost always I was like, not great. I
Yeah.
don't feel great. I feel kind of tired. I feel like I just wasted 4 hours of my life or 8 hours, whatever time you get stuck in. So it's like, for me, I was like, how do I feel? Right.
Yeah.
And so that's why I would say Netflix. Yeah.
8 hours. Wow.
That's nothing. I used to do way more than that probably.
Oh, that's the clip. We're clipping that, right? Climb a mountain or sit on a beach?
By myself,
No, you're with a companion. You're
a
with your wife.
companion, beach.
Okay.
Yeah.
Chocolate or chips?
Oh man, that's tough. Probably chocolate.
Chips disappear forever.
Stephen Furtick or Craig Rochelle?
Oh, why do you put me on the spot with that? Craig Rochelle, but
We have a harder one coming up.
I have nothing against Stephen Furtick though in that way.
Okay.
No, but they're two different styles.
Yeah.
Right? Like Craig Rochelle and Steve. They're almost the same in age, I think.
Are they?
I think so.
They are.
They gotta be.
They were. No, they are.
They got to
No.
be pretty close in age.
Yeah. Both are
Um,
very bulky,
And they're both
Oh.
and they both had a new book that came out. That I'm in the middle of Craig Rochelle's right now. I haven't done Stephen Furtick's yet, but they're both very similar in like what they're doing, but different deliveries.
Yeah.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah.
So
One
Yeah.
of my favorite jokes is when Dave Ramsey was preaching at Elevation, and they had done a conference, and Stephen Furtick and Craig Rochelle were with him, and he said he was the Oompa Loompa on the Buff Pastors tour.
Yeah.
That was one of the funniest jokes I've ever heard.
I could see Stephen Furtick's biceps from the 300 level at Ace or at the Scotiabank Arena last year.
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
he is jacked up.
he was flexing them.
Yeah.
Just to play hockey or football.
To play
Yeah.
hockey.
Okay, iPhone or Android?
Oh, iPhone.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I knew
right
you'd say
answer.
You always pick the guests who are going to pick the iPhones. We have had a lot of guests picking the Androids. By the way.
No, there's been
They're
one.
actually-
I
they're
think there's
actually-
been one out of
No,
13
they're,
that
they're
picked
no,
Android.
You're not remember.
I'm gonna find them all.
Live sporting event or live concert?
Sporting event.
All right, David or Jeremy?
Just right off the
You
hop.
have to pick one or the other. The other
Oh
one is
my
against forever.
gosh, that's stupid. I'm not answering that.
And
We'll allow it for that.
Hey,
one.
right in the
We'll allow
middle.
it for
We've
that
done
one.
the this or that. I always have 2 post this or that questions for my guests. Your top 3 places to take your wife on a date in Manitoba. Could be a restaurant, could be another place, any place. Top 3.
Top 3 that I've been or haven't been.
That you've been to.
It could be
Like
either.
that you would.
No, it can be either.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, our go-to like a great date night that I enjoy is the keg. Typically on Gary Street, that's our favorite keg. Top 3, hey.
Yeah.
Heinrich Hollow would be another one that we go to
That's be
decently
said, yeah, for
often.
sure.
Yep.
Yep. And
One that
then-
you can't, like, if you said, Jess, we're going out tonight, this is our favorite place, this is where, if no other places existed, this would be the place we'd go to.
Are we talking food or anything?
Anything.
Anything.
Could be Thermea, could be anything. I'm not trying to give you clues.
Thermia is good. I just don't like going to a place like that and seeing people I know.
Right.
And it happens all the time at Thermia.
Because then you got to
So-
talk to them.
Not that I don't mind talking. It's like I'm there with my wife. I don't really want
Just do
to.
the off glass. You can't talk
you know?
in there.
Sorry.
Just do the off
Yeah.
glass. You can't talk there.
Yeah.
I can't talk. I'm sorry. And number 3.
Oh man, that's tough.
Where'd you go on your first date?
First date. Oh man, I got to think back to that. What did we do our first
Oh man, we
date?
put him on the spot.
And my wife knows that my memory is like not the greatest when it comes to these types of things. Where did we go on our first date? Oh my goodness, we went to a restaurant. I think we went to. I think we went to Stella's.
Okay.
So Stella's is probably another. I don't want to always pick food, but that would be another one that
That's right.
food.
A lot of our guests pick restaurants for all 3
Yeah.
of them, so you're good.
Okay.
And the one person, either dead or alive, that you would love to have a 20-minute conversation with, and you may not pick Jesus.
And I am allowed to not pick Jesus.
You can't.
I can't. I
And,
may not.
and as we explained to the chaplain of the Bombers and the Jets, it's because Jesus is always with you, so he cannot be picked.
Yeah, and he left Holy Spirit.
Right.
Right. If we go down that, we can hold teaching on there. But just 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Of who I am right now.
Yeah, you right now, who would you want
My
to
dad.
date? Yeah.
Probably my dad. Yeah. I think that'd be it. In the position I am right now,
Yeah.
in what I know, in how everything's went down, it'd be my dad. 100%. Yeah.
What's your first question you'd ask him?
Oh man. Probably what's heaven like?
That was actually
Yeah.
was like the first thing that popped in my head.
And then we get into business. So what'd you do when this happened? What'd you do when this happened? What'd you do when this happened? Yeah.
I got one last question. This
Okay.
is the big one,
The big one, yeah.
The hard one.
the hard one.
It's going to be tough.
If you're to just, you're talking to the youth right now and you want to give them one piece of advice that they can hold true to themselves, what would that piece of advice be?
Every season's temporary. Your hard ones, your great ones. I would say every season, I mean physically how we look at it and our fleshly way of experiencing it is temporary. Of course, biblically, I believe that every season you go through, you can have joy and love and peace and strength through. But when it comes to that, it's probably a multi answers in that way. But I would say that, and then also say just like take every day by day. Have your plans. Don't be married to them. Because the Bible talks about that a lot too. It's like God has plans for you too, and when you submit to Him in your obedience, it's amazing where He'll take you. So some people are just too married to their own plans when they feel like they shouldn't do it. They're so married to them that they ruin their entire life because they don't step out into the area that God wants them to step out to because they're too married to their own plans.
Yep.
Take it day by day. Everything's stressful. It seems stressful if you're busy and you think a year down the road of everything you have to do. So I would just say take it day by day. Wake up every morning. Do your best to be grateful and thankful for what you do have, and allow that to be your base every day. And your day will probably every day that comes after that, you'll probably get better and better.
That's awesome.
That's a great answer.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Well, we'd like to thank Zach for being on the program
Thank you,
today.
Zach.
Thanks for having me.
It was an awesome conversation.
Yeah.
Um,
Thanks for watching the show. We appreciate it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and
comment.
he remembered it this time. Commenting is Tim's fuel, and Tim likes to see the comments because whether they're positive, negative, or just in the middle, he likes to see them.
It's response, right?
Good responses. Anyways, thanks again, Zach. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thanks for watching the Greg and Tim Show podcast. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with all your friends. Sharing is caring.